this is the whole staging process. I've got cold water right here. Here's where my tomatoes that I picked them out of the bushel. I've gone through and picked out the ones that don't have bruises, bad spots, etc., like that. Over here is the ones that I've already peeled and put them in a big shiny so that the fluid is tilted so the fluid drains down there. Now from here I'll take the tomatoes and drop them into the boiling water. And I try to keep the same size generally of all the ones that I'm doing. I'll drop them in, enough of them for me to be able to work with. I think maybe 2 more there. Then I'll seal them up. Then I'll wait for just about a minute and the skins will come off really clear after I drop them into the cold water here. So they'll come right from the boiling water. I'll put them in the cold water here until I can work with them and peel them, and then they'll go over in this stage here. Okay, as you can see, here's the tomatoes that I peeled the skins off after the hot water bath, and as I do this I've broken them up in chunks so that when you do that you can look for any kind of bad spots or bruises or anything else that might be in there. These are going to be now cored and seeded, which we'll do next. Okay, this is what we're going to do here is we're coring and de-seeding the tomatoes, and how I do it is I just run my thumb through there, kind of break it apart, and you want to get the seeds out and most of that juice out too, because as the salsa cooks the tomatoes will break down enough to have it plenty juicy enough. You want a thick salsa, so you want to get rid of most of all this juice. Just break it out there. Now, okay, this is 6 quarts of the tomatoes that have been cored and pretty much seeded. We measured it out into our bigger stock pot there, poured the 6 quarts in there, and now we pour it back into our tray and we're going to let it drain. Down here is all the draining you'll see of more liquid coming off the tomatoes. You want to get rid of that, all that extra juice, so that you're cooking down more of the meat for the salsa. Now, okay, these are the tomatillos. They're a Mexican tomato, and you see they got this dry husk that forms on them. You peel that off, and the skin underneath is really sticky. There's no need to peel these in the traditional sense like you do the regular tomatoes. Their skin is, all you need to do is wash that skin off, and then you can cut them up. Cut the stem out and use them. They grow like little lanterns outside, and they'll be empty at first, and then they'll grow, and there's the tomato inside. They're really sweet, and what I really think is that this gives my salsa a different taste than regular, just even Romas or any kind of meaty tomatoes. It's the sweetness that I depend on for the salsa, because I don't use sweet peppers, I use hot peppers. Now the recipe calls for 4 cups of long green chilies and a half a cup of jalapenos. But any kind of peppers that you want to use is fine, and you're going to be fine with the acid levels when we add the lemon juice and the other stuff to make it come out. These are serrano peppers, which are pretty hot, carry a lot of spice on them. The cayenne that I have here, I like to add cayenne. I won't be adding the black pepper that it calls for in the recipe, because I'd rather use cayenne, a regular and natural form of it. I have some jalapenos here, red and green. They say that the red is a little bit hotter than the green, and I'd have a tendency to believe them. Some Hungarian peppers, red and green here, and I got a couple habaneros, and I'll probably add some more of those. And this one here, I don't actually use any more green peppers. This is a Melrose. As it turns red, it's like a sweet pepper, and it's just so good. And one other thing to note on these peppers, especially the hotter ones, the habaneros, the cayenne, and even the jalapenos, the heat is in the ribs and the seeds of the pepper. So depending on the heat level you want from your salsa, to include the rib inside the pepper and the seeds is up to you. You'll have to kind of experiment and play with that. And like I said, always wear rubber gloves when you're cutting these up and cleaning them. Otherwise, you will be very, very, very sorry. Doesn't have. So here it is. We've added all the peppers cut up and all the onions, 5 cups of onion. And the only thing left, we're going to cut up the garlic, 6. Now here's the salsa. I've let it sit overnight and try to get more of the fluid out. It's covered overnight, but it'll still be a little bit juicy, but we want it to thicken up. You got to remember that you want your salsa thick, but you can't use any kind of thickener because we're going to be canning it, so you can't use any kind of thickener as far as any kind of like a roux or anything else to thicken it up. It's going to have to be like natural because we're going to can it. This will thicken up a little bit more when we add our spices, the oregano, the cumin, and the cilantro. So I've always cooked my salsa for at least, I'd say, 8 hours. Like last night, I heated it up and cooked it for about an hour, and then turned off the stove and let it sit overnight. Now I'll heat it up today and cook it for a few more hours, add my spices, and then it'll be ready to can. Now we've cooked off most of the juice. It's been cooking for a couple hours, stirring it, make sure it doesn't burn on the bottom. And if I hadn't mentioned it before, this is a 12-quart pan that it's in, so it's a pretty good sized pan. We've got it stirred, we've gotten a lot of the juice off. Even hot, it's pretty thick, it's about where we want it. And so now we're going to add the 2 cups of lemon juice, and this is not something that's optional. The lemon juice is what's going to help change the or help the acidic level when you can it, so it's pretty much a must. So we're going to let this stew and cook for about another hour, and then we're going to add the cumin and the oregano and the fresh cilantro. And last but not least, here's the result of all the salsa that we just made. I ended up with 10 pints of salsa and 7 half pints of the salsa. Now the only fun thing to do is to make our own tortilla chips in the fryer and make some funny labels to put on it with the ingredients, and it's good to go for gifts to people or to last all through the year. Just open up a jar of salsa and have at it. Hope you liked the video. Not quite really professional here doing these, but hope it was informative, and if you've got any questions, get a hold of me through my email. Thanks for watching. Bye.